Welcome, Leah. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. This has been a long time coming, so I'm
Yes,
excited.
I know. We've been talking about this for, I guess, 6 months or something like that. I think it was
Something like that. Yeah.
maybe
15
maybe
years. I don't
maybe 8 months that we've been
know.
talking about doing this. And so yeah. So Leah, why don't you start off telling us a little bit about your film, and for the people in the audience that don't maybe know what the film's about.
So Big Sonia is a feature documentary and also an educational project and an impact project right now. It's a film about my grandmother who is going to turn 100 this year in November. She's a Holocaust survivor, and she's one of the last Holocaust survivors living in the Midwest who, at the time of the film, was still going out to speak to folks about her experience as a witness. And she would go to schools and prisons, um, book clubs, basically anywhere that would have her. And she would talk for as long as they'd allow her to about her experience during the Holocaust. And she, because of her engaging and quirky personality, was able to reach a wide variety of people and really, truly change their lives. So the film is about her. It's also about her tailor shop that she was running at a old abandoned mall in Kansas City that has since been torn down, unfortunately. And it's also about how the Holocaust affects generations and my family in particular.
Great. All right. Awesome. And so what was the goal of the release, of the, not necessarily of you starting the film, but what was your goal, your primary goal of the release?
Well, we knew from day one when we decided that this film was going to be a feature instead of a short, that we wanted to reach a broad audience. We wanted to reach folks who were not Jewish, people who'd never even heard of the Holocaust. We wanted to reach folks all over the world, and we specifically wanted to be able to educate um, middle school and high school aged kids. And we wanted to do it in a way that folks hadn't done before or that we hadn't seen, or in a way that would draw you in versus making you look away, like so many of the Holocaust films that I saw growing up, continue to see. We wanted to do something different.
Hmm. Okay. And then, so I would say your primary goal then was audience, or was it primary?
Audience education, um, our careers as filmmakers were also on the line. And so, of course, we wanted to take the film as far as we could, in terms of, qualifying it for an Academy Award. So there were professional goals like
Mhm.
that as well.
Okay. All right. And then when did what were your first thoughts about who the audience of the film was?
Well, we knew the, I don't want to use the term, but I will, the lowest hanging fruit, or the choir, as you will. We knew that folks inside of the Jewish community were going to be intrigued by the film.
Mhm.
But we really wanted to reach an audience beyond the traditional Jewish audience, the traditional audience who would come to a film when you say the word Holocaust.
Mhm.
Um, and so we actually wanted to reach middle school, high school folks who were of, all race, class, gender, religion,
Mhm.
and ethnicities. So I mean, I ask folks all the time too, like, so who's your audience? And when you say everyone, you know, okay, so be more specific than that. But I will say everyone to begin with. And then we
Right.
started going down and getting a lot more specific and realized that actually our audience, a big part of our audience is in middle school.
Mhm. Interesting. So yeah, that was my next question. Who did you discover your audience for the film truly was?
Well, we did discover that um, folks were bringing their families and their kids younger than who we thought our audience would be. So we had thought 13 and above, because that's about when uh, I started really learning about the Holocaust in school, and we know that middle schools, a lot of middle schools were teaching the Holocaust starting at seventh, eighth grade. So we
Mhm.
had assumed that that was our lowest age, but we actually had a lot of folks bringing their kids in, third, fourth, fifth grade. So we had
Wow.
a younger audience than we thought. And then we did have folks who, from all religious backgrounds who would come. So we had known that the Jewish community was, we had thought that the Jewish community would be a no-brainer. We didn't get into all of the Jewish film festivals that we applied for. And so, maybe that wasn't necessarily the most direct audience. It worked in a way we didn't realize. And then we had assumed that folks in maybe rural communities would be less interested in the
Mhm.
project. And that wasn't the case. We had really good success and continue to have success doing community screenings in small towns and rural communities. We had thought that the bigger cities would be the most obvious choice, but we actually get more requests from places that I've never heard of.
Mhm. And how do you, well, I was intending to ask this later, but I am just curious based on saying, how do you feel, what do you feel, how you feel those people are finding out about the film? Do you feel like those people are now finding out about it in the long tail, or were people finding out about it in the initial release?
Well, initially we did proactively, we
Mhm.
did so much work proactively to book community screenings.
Mhm.
We did a ton of marketing. I mean, we continue to do a ton of anyone who's followed this project knows how much marketing we do and how hard we push and how much we post and how many newsletters I send out every we work our butts off for
Mhm.
that audience. We have a lot of word of mouth. Word of mouth is probably our best marketing tool for this film. And then during the festival circuit, we also did a number of screening tours
Mhm.
with the film, and those tours were typically going to smaller communities. So once we had screened in a community, then the word of mouth always happens after that. And so we made it a point to try and negotiate as many community screenings as we could, no matter where they are. And we went to museums and schools and synagogues and churches and parks and businesses and organizations. And so we really cast a very, very wide net, and we were very aggressively, proactively making phone calls, doing emails, trying to reach out to folks as much as humanly possible.
Okay, so let's go back to the festival release. So where did you end up premiering?
We premiered at we premiered on both coasts of the United States in the same week
Hmm.
during Sonia's 90th birthday.
Oh, okay.
So it was intense. um, we premiered at the Napa Valley Film Festival
Mhm.
and Doc NYC in the same week in November 2016, right before the election.
Mhm. Right. Interesting time to do that.
Very interesting time.
Yeah. And then how did that's interesting that you did like was it like a co-world premiere?
Yeah.
And you arranged what you told the festivals, look, we want to screen both. We're going to consider you both world premiere, and they were okay was that kind of,
It
was that intense negotiation, or were they pretty open to it?
They were open to it. My family, my parents live in Napa. We had screened at the Napa Valley Film Festival before and also Doc NYC. So um, we and we had Sonia with us. So
Right. Yeah. Okay, great. And then how did you proceed with festivals beyond that? You just kind of, you didn't, did you have a festival booker, or you just did it all yourselves?
we did a lot of it ourselves. We did work with Jim Brown,
Hmm.
who you know well, and he was
Yes.
our theatrical booker. We also worked with um, Danae and Caitlin at Film Sprout. for impact and outreach for a number of months. And so there was some crossover between what I was doing, what Film Sprout was doing, and what Jim was doing. And we all kind of worked together. I think I would say I probably did 75 to 80% of the festival bookings. And we wanted to do there's a whole Jewish film festival circuit that
Right.
I love. I think it's great. There's a lot of benefits to doing that. And we wanted to, of course, to do that and the non-Jewish festival circuit. And so we kind of started with the traditional festival circuit, and maybe 50% of the way through, we started adding in the Jewish film festivals, and we were doing it all at the same time. And so we ended up spending 2 years on the road with festivals, and then also started our theatrical right after.
So just in terms of timeline, you mentioned that when you go to a city for a festival, that you would also kind of like dive into that. Is that when you also started doing community screenings, was during your festival release, or is that later? I may be misunderstanding.
That's a little bit later. Some community screenings happen at the same time as festivals, especially if they're at a business or a museum or an organization or a school. But in general, you would want to get some buzz on the festival circuit in order to fuel the community screenings.
Right. Right. And you ended up doing, I think, 75 festivals total is the amount of
More than that, but I lost count after 75. So
okay.
yeah, I 75 plus.
Right. And
Um,
then the total revenue that you have that you reported. And by the way, so Leah was generous enough. I have a very long case study rubric that I send in advance, and sometimes filmmakers fill it out and sometimes they don't. But Leah was very generous in filling it out. So I'm going to publish that rubric next week when we also publish the recording of this webinar. It'll probably be next Thursday when we publish that. So any of the facts that we're laying out here, you don't have to be furiously writing down because they'll all be published next week. She raised $18,000 from festivals with an estimated festival attendance, which is great that you kept track of this, of 40 to 50,000 people, which is very impressive. Um, and so can you talk a little bit about, like, I know most Jewish film festivals in general, most, not all, will pay an honorarium, and that's kind of relatively standard. But I know but most non-Jewish film festivals generally don't. But it seems like you were able to get screening fees. Can you talk about the process of asking for the screening fees and how much you made, per festival and which kinds of festivals were open to it?
yeah, I'd say, I mean, I cast a wide net. So I always feel like the worst thing that can happen is they can say no.
Hmm.
So I do, for a feature, I don't have the same strategy, I'd say, for a short film, but um, for our feature, I really didn't feel bad at all about asking for a screening fee, especially when folks are paying to come to the festival, they're paying to come to the movie. So um, I would always ask for a screening fee, and if they wouldn't give a fee, I would ask for, can you cover any of our travel? Um, can you do an honorarium for speaking if we show up and do a Q&A? And we were really successful with that. We traveled with Sonia to a handful of the screenings, and that always made a difference. So of course, everyone wants Sonia to be there,
Hmm.
and they were willing to help us out in that regard. But we also knew that we were furthering our careers, or we want to make more films like
Hmm.
this. And I consult on films and I do this for a living. So being at festivals and meeting those kinds, people who are at festivals, other filmmakers, distributors, that's advantageous for us,
Hmm.
but we don't want to go broke in the process. So
Right.
I'm always trying to negotiate how we can make it work without spending too much of our own money to make it happen. And screening fees are always quite helpful. I'd say that the range of screening fee when we did get one was anywhere between $150 to $500 on the the high end. I'd never get more than $500 unless I was doing some kind of special speaking engagement alongside of the film. But a typical screening fee, at least when we were doing this run with Big Sonia, was not more than a
Hmm.
couple $100.
Right, right. And then when did you start engaging audiences?
Uh, Day -1. We, um,
Of
literally,
Dave
yeah,
-1 of production, right? Not of distribution. Right.
of
Yeah. And
production.
how did you start doing that early?
Well, um, every single person that I talked to about the film, everybody in my close circle, 6 degrees of separation, and then another 6 degrees of separation. I started compiling a mailing list and a contact list very, very early on. So I send out a MailChimp newsletter that I've been doing since day one of this project, and I just keep adding folks to that constantly as much as I can, and you know, I keep good records, I guess, of all of our contacts, and
Mhm.
so I would keep people posted with the newsletter. I would try and make personal calls when I could. We would have little like happy hours or um, feedback events to try
Mhm.
and get to know our audience along the way. But I would say that the best way for me to do it and keep everybody posted and was a newsletter. And sometimes that newsletter would include like um, I called it the producer's notebook, where I would have a topic on something that had happened in the news or something that was happening in production. And I would just more like a blog, I
Mhm.
guess, kind of write about that and let people know what was happening.
And how often would what was the frequency of what's the
Hmm.
frequency of your newsletter, or what when you
Well,
started out, like during production, like did you do it quarterly or monthly
yeah,
or?
during product, I think everyone who's here who's a filmmaker or who has ever tried to raise money knows that every newsletter is also about fundraising. So we're constantly fundraising. I'm still fundraising for this project, and that has never ended. So it would ebb and flow. I'd say I would try to, in the beginning, I would try to send a newsletter once a month or once every 2 months when
Mhm.
we were just slogging. We were just hustling and doing everything we could to raise the money to produce the film. And then when we started having more happening, they would be more frequent. And so once we started distribution and festivals, I was sending out a newsletter probably two or sometimes 3 times a month. We had a lot of screenings and a lot of press. And so I'm always keeping our audience up to date on the latest press, what we're fundraising for, how they can help with impact, and trying to make it as personal as possible.
And then, so when you started the list, I think you said you had about 50 people starting.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
Yeah,
at about 50. I think we have almost 3,000 right now,
that's
which
great.
I think is still, from what I've seen other people do, might be like low mid-range
Right, but it's
for
also about the engagement. So, like,
right,
what's your open rate? Like, I
right,
always
exactly,
say it's less
exactly.
about the numbers than more, and it's more
So
about engagement.
we're getting, yeah, I just sent a newsletter. We're getting like a 60% engagement rate right now, which is really good.
Yeah. So, is
I'm
that when
happy
you
with
say
that.
engagement, is that a 60% open rate?
Yes,
Okay.
open. And then yeah, I can track all of my links and clicks to open those too. And then obviously because we're fundraising, I know if we're selling product every time I send a newsletter. And so that's obviously something I'm tracking very closely.
And what percentage, like, how many community screenings do you feel like came just out of the newsletter and, people recommending people, et
Oh
cetera?
man,
Like,
that's a really good question.
I know you don't have a
Yeah,
calculator.
I
Just to
no,
get a
I would
sense of it.
I would say almost half. I would say about 50% come from the newsletter and word of mouth.
Mhm.
And 50% are coming from other places. Either somebody, you know, happened to catch it somewhere, they saw it, they found out about it. Um, But yeah, I'd say about 50%.
Right. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I'm, as you know, people who have followed me, I'm like endlessly preaching newsletter, an email list is one of the best. And compare that to, because I know you also have robust social media. Um, you know, how much how much of your, overall revenue, just as a guesstimate, do you feel comes from your newsletter, has come from your newsletter versus how much has come from organic social?
Well, I I hate to say it, but I have to say it because it did save us on this film. I would say the number one resource for us during most of Big Sonia, not now, but during production and distribution for us, for our audience, for the folks who were online paying attention was Facebook.
Mhm. Right.
So I used Facebook for promoting all of the community screenings. I mean, we grew a very loyal audience for the project on Facebook. And because of so much spam and everything that's happening now, and just morally, I couldn't stomach keeping keeping up with Facebook
Mhm.
right now. And so I shut that down and
Oh,
tried to move everything over to the newsletter, which the jury is still out on whether that was a wise decision or not. But
well,
I can sleep at
talking
night
about
right
that,
now.
I actually have
So
suggestions on what to do. Did you completely close your Facebook page or is it still going?
it's completely closed, but I
Oh.
we should talk about that
Well,
later.
I'll just, for anyone
But I
thinking
still use
about that,
Instagram, so
right. Oh,
what's
well,
up with
you're
that?
still on.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly. I'm
exactly.
still
You can do in Facebook, you can do a very small paid ad campaign to convert your Facebook people. Maybe you did this. You can convert your Facebook people to sign up for an email list.
right,
And they'll sign up for the email list within Facebook. And then you can download the emails from Facebook because they've given consent. And you
right,
can incentivize them in some way, which I always recommend with gated, what I call gated content. So you give them something in exchange for signing up for an email list. So I advised on a film called The Residents, who had
hmm
10,000 Facebook followers, and they
Oh
had
wow,
only 1,000 people on their email list. And we started this campaign. So what they did is they gave away a track, an unreleased track,
that's
and we
great.
converted within a month. We converted 3,000 people from the Facebook into the email list. So
That's awesome. That's an awesome suggestion. I love that.
yeah, I highly recommend doing that. And because I was just talking to someone very prominent in the doc community recently who has a very robust, has had a significant robust Facebook following. And he says because of the algorithm shift lately and because of Facebook, always wanting to push you to pay to reach your
Yeah,
followers, even when you pay them small, they don't even reach as many people as they
right.
do. He's noticed that his engagement and reach from his posts, he basically says Facebook is almost useless at this point, unless you're paying them massive amounts of money.
I
And
agree. I
that
feel
face,
we hit it at the right time. I feel like
yes,
I was in like that golden
you were
pocket.
in that golden, yes, because if you were, yes, you were definitely in that golden age when Facebook was not part of their own evil empire that they are currently.
Right.
And not very helpful to creators and independent artists. So,
Yeah, it did great. It was really awesome to see how our community for the film grew there and actually interacted with each other, and people, met on people met each other on Facebook. We were able to, fill community screenings because of Facebook events. And a lot of our audience is they skew older.
mhm,
They're still using Facebook,
right.
and they were using it really heavily when we were making the film. So, and we did a crowdfunding campaign, and Facebook helped me raise money
Mhm.
because I was on multiple time zones working on a different project. And so I would direct message people on Facebook to let them know about the crowdfunding campaign. And I raised a lot of our support that way. So I'm grateful for it. And
Yeah.
I'm glad that
And people still use it.
yeah,
There's ways to work around it.
yeah,
I'm probably
for
going to
sure.
do a webinar with Dor Dotson on how to grow your followers and how to utilize social. Door, who's one of the best social media people for film out there now.
Oh, that's awesome.
Um,
Yeah. Okay.
we're going to do a webinar. There are still ways to use it. It's just not as useful as it used to be. Um, so,
Right.
and you do generally have to have a budget, a little bit of a budget
Right. Right. Right.
to reach your audience. So, okay, so moving on. So when the last thing I want to talk about film festivals before we move on, because we're already, wow, a half hour in, um, is what did you do to, and this is still the reason I'm bringing this up again is because filmmakers, I find so many filmmakers don't do this. How did you collect audience at the festivals?
You mean um audience numbers?
Yes, or just like
Oh,
how
well,
did you collect audience data at
oh,
at festivals?
so we I would always follow up with wherever we screened and find out what our audience numbers were. So they have metrics on that. The festival has metrics on that.
No, no, no. I'm more talking about your email list. Like, how did you grow
Oh,
your email list at the festivals?
oh, we went old school, John. We
Hmm.
did a we this is before people were really even using QR codes.
Hmm.
So I just made up an email list document and I brought it to all of the festivals and then I'd type it in afterwards. Sometimes I had my laptop, but most of the time I didn't. So I just had a clipboard with a old fashioned,
Yeah.
what one of these things are. Yeah. And then just if people wanted to sign up, they would sign up. But we also had a lot of swag. So we
People
had,
still do that, by the way. People
okay,
still
people,
sign
good.
clipboards. We still
So
find that clipboards trump QR.
clipboards, yeah, I still like to use a pen. So, but the bigger thing I think that was more successful was we had stickers.
Hmm.
So we had stickers with our website, and everyone who would come to a festival screening or a community screening, I mean, we still do this. We would give everybody at the door, I'd try to give everybody a sticker with our website if they want more information or to sign up. And then we actually did a lot of audience surveys at festivals as well. And so, of course, all of those require an email address
Right.
and
Cool.
postcards. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so then let's move on so was the next stage of the release theatrical or community screenings?
I would say we started doing both around the same time, theatrical and community screenings.
Right. And then how many cities did you do in your theatrical?
I think we ended up doing,
Oh, you just did freeze, Leah. I don't know if you can hear me, but um, you did just freeze. Um, I am going to try
oh,
to.
sorry, I'm back now.
Okay, good.
Was I frozen? Sorry.
You're
Um,
frozen.
I would say oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can
Okay.
hear.
I'd say the bulk of our theatrical was Los Angeles, New York, and Kansas City.
Right. Yeah. And then can you talk a little bit about the Kansas City theatrical? Because it was relatively special.
It was very special, and we're actually going back for Sonia's 100th birthday to do a screening at the same theater that we had a record-breaking release at. So we were supposed to stay at the theater for 3 weeks, and
Oh, you froze again. Um, I'm going to fill in that I know that Sonia actually screened, I believe. Oh,
oh, here we're sorry.
yeah,
Yeah, I
sorry.
don't know. The internet's good from here, but
Hmm.
um, so yeah, we were supposed to stay at the theater for 3 weeks, but ended up being 8 months.
Hmm.
People would come back to see the film multiple times. They would bring their families. We had schools showing up for special screenings. The theater is in Sonia's hometown, and Sonia is a local icon.
Hmm.
So, and she's our best promoter, really, of her own film.
Hmm.
So she would always tell people go and see her movie.
Hmm.
And we had a lot of local press. Most of my family lives in Kansas City. So we had great word of mouth,
Mhm.
and just a really awesome experience to basically live in the theater lobby for a couple of months,
Mhm.
continuing to promote the film. We did, because we decided we were going to be there. Luckily, I have family who let us stay in the house and set up a production office in the basement. Um, and we just made the most out of it.
What do you feel was the most significant factor for Butson's, actually getting people into seats? Maybe not so much in Kansas City, but elsewhere and in community screenings in a sense.
I feel like being there
Hmm.
makes all the difference.
Right.
So, because the film is about my family,
Hmm.
and I'm in the film a little bit. I'm in there more than I wanted to be. I didn't want to be in it at all, but um, because it's so personal, people want to talk about it afterwards. And so if I show up, or if um, anyone in the family shows up to do a Q&A, I feel
Hmm.
like that makes a lot of difference.
Hmm.
And it's very therapeutic to watch the film with an audience. It makes
Hmm.
you think about your own family. It brings up a lot of very personal issues that people need to talk about afterwards. And so I become a sounding board for that. And everyone always has a lot of questions after they see the film. So I think the personal touch, and that's why I spent a long time on the road with the
Hmm.
film, because I do feel like that made a difference in getting people into seats, was they know that
Right.
someone's going to be there they can talk about the film with afterwards.
Right. Yeah. So essentially eventizing, the screen.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. And as much as possible, we did happy hours before, happy hours after, meet the filmmaker, meet Sonia, especially at the the Glenwood Arts Theater where we were for 8 months. Sonia couldn't help herself. She couldn't stay away. So we ended up bringing her couch, her leopard print love seat from her tailor shop to the theater lobby, and it's still there. And so she would just come and hold court,
Right.
and you never knew when she was going to be there, but there was a pretty good chance she'd be hanging around. So
That's
that, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. Um, so in terms of, because when I think about butts and seats, it's like, in terms of what besides eventizing, but like press, earned media, press, or shared media, which is organic social or partnerships. And I think, or paid media, which is advertising, and then owned media, which is, your website, et cetera. But it seems like based on your what you wrote and told me about is like your partnerships were pretty important. Kind of
Absolutely.
like, not just in Kansas City, but around. And can you talk about how you went about developing those partnerships?
Oh man, I mean, I think they're everything for every film we do, but especially for this one, definitely the partnerships and the relationships are the most important. And we're building those all the time. I mean, I'm building those through my own personal connections, but also 6 degrees of separation, or someone would come to see the film and say, you should talk to the company I work for might want to host a screening. Um, we have, we have nonprofit partnerships, we have corporate partnerships, we have brand partnerships, we have individual partnerships, and they're all people who care about the film in one way or another and can
Mhm.
see some kind of benefit for their community. And so we would always ask our partners to, I would provide them with social media assets. And fortunately, um, my husband, Todd, is a awesome graphic designer also, and he's actually Sonia's favorite grandchild. So he would, I'd have a list of assets every time we had a new screening or event. Poor Todd would have to create all these assets, and those assets I would send to all of our partners with a blurb and a link and ask them, please post this in your next newsletter. Please send this out to your community. So then we could um, amplify the community and also grow our own community exponentially because we're asking our partners for help. in that
Right.
respect. And some of the partners would host screenings, or they would host a happy hour maybe before the screening. But if you want to exponentially grow your audience, you have to have partners who are willing to help in that.
Mhm.
I don't know another way, unless you get really lucky and you get, you know,
Yeah.
great
No,
press.
I totally agree with you. But what would be do you have one tip or two or three tips on working with partners, for filmmakers? Like what would be your top tip of working with partners?
That's a really good question. I would say to go in with the mindset of listening and really finding out what they need to be successful.
Mhm.
So I now always go in asking partners first and foremost, like, what is on your wish list? What would the most successful partnership look like for
Mhm.
you? And
Mhm.
what are you hoping to get out of this relationship? So
Mhm.
I'm trying to find out from them why bother? Because it's a
Mhm.
lot of work. So what do they need from us? What do they need? And then I would say to throw all expectations out the window
Right.
and be open for whatever comes, because I'm constantly surprised and I'm constantly disappointed, and then I'm constantly surprised and excited, and then I'm sad, and then it's a whole salad bowl of emotions, and you get really used to rejection, and then you have some incredible wins that make
Mhm.
it everything worth it.
Right. Great. Okay. So let's move on to educational distribution. So a lot of I know you created you sold college licenses, and also the film was on Canopy. But I really want to hear about the middle school through 12 distribution that you did, because I know that's one of the toughest nuts for filmmakers to crack. And can you talk about, how you went about that?
Yeah, so we worked with an awesome company called Journeys in Film, and they help projects create educational resources. It's one of the things that they do. And so I reached out to them because I had found out that they actually created the curriculum for Schindler's List.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, this is something to explore. I wasn't even sure how that would work or what that would cost, but we ended up working with them to create core standard curriculum guide for Big Sonia that's geared to middle school and above, mostly middle school, high school. It also works college, not as well, but we have other discussion guides. So it actually works for a wide range of ages and situations, but it's an 80-page guide. It's
Mhm.
very extensive, and we created a whole educational packet,
Mhm.
um, a toolkit, we call it.
Right.
And so we have, rights to sell that, and that has become the best way for us to actually get into middle schools and high schools and colleges, educational facilities, because we've created something that's very plug and play for a number of different um, classes and ages and subjects. And Journeys in Film was was turnkey. I mean, they were the organization that allowed us to do all of this because of their knowledge and their experience. And so I've actually been working with them and another film, a short narrative called The Fast Runner,
Mhm.
that I've been helping out for the last year. And they're now creating curriculum for that film. And they have a pulse on what teachers are asking for.
Mhm.
So it was a really good relationship. They were able to help us create a package that would be the most useful and the most plug and play, which is what we wanted, because we didn't want teachers to have to work too hard to use it.
Right.
That
And
defeats
then
the purpose.
Right. And then, but the thing is like there's so many school districts, et cetera. How did you like then start connecting with schools? There's so many school districts, there's so many, they each have their own, methodology, et cetera. And
I
they
mean,
also
I'm
generally don't have budgets, especially
absolutely,
these days. So,
nobody has budget.
yeah.
Schools really don't have budget. So, and we're still working on, I'm still doing this today.
Mhm.
We proactively, send out um, emails to school administrators, to school districts. We have a large audience for the film who has seen the film, who has kids in
Mhm.
school. And so we're always asking them, could your school library use Big Sonia? Or if they watch the film and they reach out, I say, do you have any kids in middle school or high school or college? Would you like to donate packages? Most of the funding comes from, people who say, I want to donate to, I went to this school growing up. There's 7 schools in the district. I'm going to donate 7 packages to the district. And then I do the work of finding out who to send it to and who to follow up with. But we did find, and I didn't know this when I got started because I hadn't done this kind of educational distribution before, that schools have no money. The
Mhm.
schools are the one, usually it is not, I'd say 10% of the time it's the school paying for the package. 90% of the time it's a donor um, donating a package to a school. And some of the time we have received a few grants,
Mhm.
school foundation grants. So the Columbia Education Foundation in the Midwest, we did receive a grant for me to go travel around to all of the middle schools and high schools in the district and then also show the film. That was a special opportunity that came about a couple of years ago, and I wish I could replicate it, but there just aren't a lot of grants like that. And then I went to school in St. Louis, and the Clayton Education Fund also gave us a grant a few years ago to show the film at multiple schools in the district and then purchase the package for their libraries.
So each package, I think, was like four. How much is each package for
Each package is $500.
right,
It comes with a community screening license, and once you have the package, you keep it in the school library forever.
right,
So it's there for all of the teachers to use at that facility.
right. And
And
so if someone's donating to 7 schools in the district, they're basically donating 3,500,
yep,
and that provides the access so that you can do. And then so that's lots of little grants that you got from people, over the course of time.
we're just, yeah, constantly hustling. I'm about to work on a larger grant that would hopefully allow us to do this on a bigger scale versus just going after one school at a time, one district at a time. We've had a lot of success, but we've also been working on this for a very long time.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, there's, hundreds and thousands and thousands of middle schools and high schools in the country,
Yeah.
and you know, why not? I It would be a dream to be able to do it on a more district-wide level versus individually. So anytime we get a grant for a district, that's like, to me, that's the holy grail.
Right. So how many of these licenses for middle and high schools have you sold? Or you can
Um,
say.
yeah, I mean, over the last, gosh, 10 years, more than 200
Mhm.
right
Right.
now. And we're still hustling. I've got a discount if anybody's interested for Sonia's 99th birthday. We're trying to sell 99 before her 100th birthday. And I
Okay.
have
My
65,
mom's also my mom's
65 more to go. So if you're interested, they're half price.
that's great. My mom's turning 99 in February.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
We should get our moms together.
Congrats. That's awesome.
All right, so let's move on to PBS distribution. How long after the theatrical and starting the community screenings did you engage PBS distribution? And how did you approach PBS distribution?
So I wasn't, PBS wasn't really on my radar
Mhm.
until 4 or 5 years ago.
Mhm.
We were so busy with everything else, and PBS doesn't pay. for
Mhm.
content. You have to raise money through sponsorships. And so,
Well, do it through PBS
well,
Plus or APT or NETA, like it's
right,
supposed to. And especially now, since, it seems like Congress has eliminated a lot of funding for PBS, so it might become much more of this.
right,
Yeah,
right. So we were on we ended up on PBS Plus, a
right.
60-minute version of the film. We had to re-edit the film. I can't actually remember how I first even thought the opportunity was something real, but I do remember reaching out to Sarah Needham, who's a friend and a producer who has worked with a lot of films and filmmakers and PBS, and she helped me understand the process and helped me through the process of raising sponsorship funds that we needed in order to re-edit the film and
Mhm.
make another film essentially and get it through all of the QC and everything that it required to get up to PBS Plus. So
Right.
we had a 3-year contract that just ended in April of this year, and my dream is to re-up it, but that is up in the air at the moment. But it would be awesome to have it for another go round, especially in the current climate we're living in.
Right. And the way you raise money for that methodology is through sponsorship for selling the underwriting time that
The
you,
underwriting, yeah, and you can underwriters can have an ad at the beginning and the end. So every time the film plays, um, it's a little commercial, I guess, or an ad, if you will.
right.
And so you can measure the metrics for how many people watch the film on PBS, and that's always nice to be able to share with
Mhm.
funders and sponsors also.
And how many people have seen the film on PBS now?
Well, we know over 200 million people had the opportunity to watch it.
Right. Okay. But you don't know the actual viewership.
No, we did that. Um, that would be well, as far as I understand, that would be impossible to actually know unless everybody was writing to me telling me that they actually watched it. But
Which
we
is
we
the sad state of data collection from legacy broadcast, unfortunately.
we know that 99% of the United States was able to watch it through PBS Plus. So
You got very good coverage.
yeah, we can't ask for more than that. I was really happy with that.
So let's talk briefly. So you weren't on VOD, video on demand, for the longest time, but I guess you just started being on video on demand. Like why most films would have been on Amazon,
We
iTunes.
were
Oh, okay.
we were. What happened was we were on Amazon um, and Amazon Prime. I don't know if we were, I think that we were on iTunes at one point. We were on iTunes at one point. And over the years, all of the distributors we were working with either went bankrupt or went out of business.
Mhm.
And I was started working on other projects. And so the film's been up, for years on Amazon, Amazon
Oh, it
Prime,
has. Okay.
iTunes. Yeah, it was.
Right.
Until a couple of months ago when I finally had time to settle down and try and investigate um, why I hadn't seen any money from any of those transactions. And people were still purchasing our film on digital platforms, but we were seeing no revenue. We had no accountability. Everybody was passing the buck. And I just decided, why are we doing this for free um,
Mhm.
when I could have more control over, I mean, we could be raising money that we
Mhm.
need through this. And so I just put the film up on Vimeo on demand. I probably would have done it sooner if I had had some headspace to really think this through, but things have been a little busy in
Right.
personal life. And so when I
Yeah.
finally sat down to think about it, I thought, man, I wish I could have done this sooner, thought about this sooner, because we love the way that films look on Vimeo. I know that it is not the way that a lot of our audience is used to watching films, which is why I had kept it on Amazon Prime, because that most people in our audience, at least for Big Sonia, they go to Amazon Prime. Is your film on Amazon or Netflix? which
Yeah.
we weren't able to get the film to Netflix. The distributors who were trying to do that at one point kept getting rejected. So the film kept getting rejected. So I would have loved for that to happen, but um, it didn't work out with Netflix. And so everyone's, oh, well, I'll watch it on Amazon.
Right.
Um, but, you know, not receiving any money in combination with, you know, not feeling great personally about supporting Amazon right now. We
Mhm.
don't need the audience bad enough to keep it on Amazon for free. I guess that's at the end of the day,
Right.
right now where we are in the trajectory of the film. Yes, I want people to see it, but I'm also trying to pay my own bills
Mhm.
and um, feel good about the companies that I'm supporting.
Right. Okay, so what would be the five things that you felt, or five, it doesn't have to be five, but what were the things that you feel like you did the best, in the release? That were most the best decisions and the best things that you leaned into for the film to be a success.
Well, I always want to work with people who are a lot smarter than me. Um, and I feel like I put together a great team of talented and wise and smart people and partners so that I feel like we had the best team I could have asked for.
Hmm.
People who were really specialized at doing what they did, and we all worked together in a way that felt really good. I learned a lot from them, and I was really happy with the team that we had
Hmm.
during the heaviest distribution and outreach and impact and even production. I loved who I got to work with.
Hmm. Great.
I feel like I did that well. I feel like we made the most out of festivals. I don't know that I could have stayed on the road any longer and made a bigger difference. I went all in,
Mhm.
and it took a personal toll, but for the film, I think it was the smartest thing we could have done is try and show up at as many screenings as humanly possible. So, and I'm proud of the way we made that work.
Mhm.
Um, I am really proud of our educational toolkit and all of the resources that we've created as side projects to that.
Mhm.
And that continues to be used in classrooms, and I'm proud of the way that it's received. And every time we get letters from students and they talk about how the film is changing their lives, that's the holy grail for filmmakers. I mean, you want to know that what you're doing is changing people's lives. And so I'm really proud of the way that we created the educational resources with Journeys in Film and the way that we continue to do outreach for education.
Mhm.
In terms of a couple of things I wish I would have done better, um, or maybe weren't the best decisions. I feel like I definitely should have started Vimeo on demand a lot sooner. I
Mhm.
should have had a lot more accountability for the digital distribution. Uh, yeah, I'm like kicking myself right now because I'm so happy with the way that it looks on Vimeo. I wish I would have um, done that a lot sooner.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
And I wish that I would have, and I don't know if there's any way you can find a Netflix specialist, but I feel like the film is a really good fit for Netflix. It has been and will continue to be, and that just hasn't we haven't been able to get to them.
Right.
And it's something that is probably one of the bigger regrets that I
Well,
have.
don't kick yourself because they're not really buying much,
True, yeah. But yeah, we've crossed paths and come so close in so many ways. It just hasn't been the right exact fit for one reason or another. And so I wish maybe I would have spent a little bit more energy and time just focusing on that relationship and trying to build that and make that successful.
Mhm. Right. Cool. All right. So we have some questions from the audience. I think a lot of them we've already gone through, at least the questions that we had originally. But yeah, talking about the VOD, it in the came up a couple times in the chat about did you use aggregators? And I think I know in the notes you said that you worked with Passion River, which
Or just,
went out of business, which is part
right.
of the reason that you didn't get any money, unfortunately. And
We did make some, yeah, there were some deals that we made with Passion River up front.
mhm,
Um, a couple of yeah, deals that we had made up front, I'm sure that happened, but that things kind of got lost along the way. And when they shut down, they, of course, all of their content went to another company that we just decided we would decline to go that route because I didn't know anybody personally there. And we really value the personal relationship. So, of course, when I met with Matt, and I like him,
mhm.
and that was a require, before we got into a deep relationship with any of our distributors for this project
Right.
or agents, or we met with them personally. We made sure that these are the people we want to work with because we had had bad experiences in the past.
Mhm.
Even so,
Yeah.
things happen.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Matt left the company and then it fell apart about a year later. So,
right, right.
fortunately, yeah. So, and would you potentially work with another aggregator now, that you feel comfortable with to put the film back up onto, well, I guess maybe you don't want to put it back up on, then you have to have, I guess, if you're approaching this ethically, you have to then decide whether you agree
Yeah,
ethically with the companies, and a lot of the companies, maybe are problematic. So,
correct. Yeah, it's different for every film is different. I am most likely for a short doc that we have, Uncle Bully's Surf School, that's we are going to work most likely with a distribution company, an aggregator, I guess, if you will,
mhm.
for that film, but we're being pretty.
Oh, you froze again. Is Leah freezing for everyone? If some people I don't see. Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. It's not just me. All right.
Oh,
Uh,
sorry, I'm back.
okay, great.
Yeah, we are going to work with a aggregator and distributor for digital distribution for Uncle Bully's Surf School. But
Good.
I'm more targeted about where we want the film to show up.
Right. And there is a question now that you bring up shorts, whether you feel like such strategies can be applied to both shorter media, um, and the question also says in literature, fiction, non. I think a lot of these strategies do apply to multiple forms of content. Um, but like, how would you talk about, these working, with short films?
I mean, I'm just now going through that process. So the jury's still out for me on that. Um, yeah, so Uncle Bully's Surf School is, a 40-minute film, and it's had a very different festival trajectory because of the time length. Digitally, things are going to be different, and maybe we do need to reconsider some of the platforms that I hadn't wanted to be on before because it is a short. I just don't know yet because I haven't done it. We're in the experimenting phase right now.
Right. And you froze again, unfortunately.
Uh-oh. I said we're
Oh, but
in,
we can
yeah.
still hear you though. Good.
Okay. I was just saying I think that the jury's still out because we're experimenting at the
Yeah.
moment.
The one thing, and just in terms of shorts, depending on the short, if it's kind of an impact or if there's a target niche audience for a short, and if you're planning on doing community screenings, that sometimes shorts are better than a feature,
Right?
so that because people will generally have 2 hours
Absolutely.
of their lives that they want to give you. So if you have a 40-minute short that allows you to have an hour and 20 minutes for discussion, if you have a half-hour short, there's been impact shorts that have been half hour that go out to community screenings. So people are happy to watch a half
Yes,
hour film, talk for an hour, and then leave. Then it doesn't have to
absolutely.
even be 2 hours. It can be an hour. you know, and
Absolutely. Yeah, there's
so
a lot of success in education also with shorter films. We broke our film up into many pieces for our educational toolkit.
yeah.
So you have to, yeah, listen to what the audience wants and what the
Oh,
teachers want.
so Maury just entered the way, came back in. So we should talk a little bit about Leah. This is your father, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yes. So we were going to spotlight. Can someone spotlight Maury from my team? Can you spotlight Maury? So Maury wrote a very famous book called Shaking the Money Tree, which is one of the most renowned books for raising money for independent film or also for anything. But I think it's for film, right? It's geared.
For film, but a lot of the strategies are for
Yes. So
everything.
here we have
Hi,
the
Tom.
pleasure of Maury joining us. And if you're interested in fundraising, I highly recommend Maury's book. And especially if you're one of the things that I took from Maury's is how to do kind of small fundraisers with, how to strategize and how to execute small screening fundraisers. So welcome, Maury. What a
Hi,
pleasant surprise.
I don't want to take up any of it of Leah's time.
Okay.
She
Yeah,
knows more about fundraising than I ever
That's
spoken
do.
like
not
a true
true.
dad. But why don't you maybe say what do you feel that Leah, how did Leah put your book into practice in the best ways for this film?
Well, she memorized it. So
Was she forced to by eighth grade? She had to memorize the book.
no, I kept it away from her. I was surprised that she ever read it. I think her boyfriend bought it for her before they got married.
Hmm.
But the big thing about fundraising is the evergreens, and that is your sense of self and how you deal with people and how you approach it. And Leah is really, really good at that.
Mhm.
Articulating the project, making eye contact, really talking to people, understanding, listening to them, which you mentioned earlier, uh, and then applying those principles of fundraising to the work. And it's always really hard work, and she just busts her butt. I'm so impressed with what she does.
Oh, thank you.
Right. I'm kind of curious now that we have you, how did you come to write the book?
Pardon?
How did you come to write the book?
Well, I didn't want to write it. I was running the Bay Area Video Coalition, and every day a filmmaker would show up and say, how do I raise money? How do I find money for this project? It was always the biggest question.
Right.
So I got tired of consulting on it, and I thought, instead of telling people about it, I just write a book and they could read the book. I could hand it to them and say, go away. You don't have to hire me.
Oh my
Then
God,
it created its own monster.
that's the reason I wrote Think Outside the Box Office for the exact same reason because people were coming up to me and going, "Oh, I want you to consult," and it's like, okay, but I only have $20. It's like, okay,
Right.
I'm gonna write a book, and then you can buy the book for $20.
Right. And most independent filmmakers could just never afford me, but they could definitely afford the book.
Right, exactly. So, do we know each other from Bayvac days? I'm just
Yeah.
really
Oh,
sorry.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
there you go.
exactly. Yes. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. That's way back.
Yeah, way, way back. Okay, well, what would be the 2 or 3 tips that you would give to filmmakers for fundraising in these tough times?
Well, first you have to decide if you really have to do the fundraising.
Hmm.
In other words, how committed are you to making this thing happen? Why, why do you feel it must happen? You have to be very grounded because the work is so hard, so tough, and it takes so long that if you're not really devoted to this project in a very deep way, sooner or later you're going to give up.
Hmm.
So that'd be my first advice. And then the second is create a team.
Hmm.
You cannot do this by yourself.
Right,
Uh, Even if you're really good at it, you're not going to have enough time, effort, energy, money, resources. You really need a good team around you, and
right.
to understand that. Those are the big things.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Leah, do you have any question for your dad now that he's on the spot?
Oh, that's rough. He's nice enough to join us. I'm sure he's got better things to do, but
Yeah, lunch with my wife. So.
I guess, was there anything that surprised you about the process of making the film? So
Yeah.
you were very involved in the process, what, for better or for worse, you were involved in the process.
Well, I'd seen so many other filmmakers go through the process that I wasn't surprised that it would take so long and be so hard. I was surprised that you got really committed to turning it from a short into a feature film, and that then slogging through 8, 9, 10 years to make that happen. And then your relationship with Grandma was a surprise because you'd avoided her for so many years, especially your
That's
teenage years.
true. Yeah.
Um, and then the fact that the film came out at all and had changed so many people's lives and had such a big effect. So that's been wonderful to watch.
Right.
No, well,
Aw,
thank you. Thanks for
right.
joining.
Thank you, Maureen.
You're welcome.
Want to stay
I
on
gotta,
while we
I
address the
gotta,
rest of the questions, or do you want
he
to?
probably has to go to lunch with my mom, but
Okay.
I'm gonna
Well,
try
I'll
to
take
put
my
a.
picture off and leave, Leah. You're doing a great job.
Okay. I'm going to take you off spotlight, Maury. Thank you so much for
Listen to
dropping
this
in.
woman, learn from her.
Okay.
Oh my
All
God,
right. So we have a
that's
question
awesome.
on physical media sales, and I know that you did sell DVDs, right?
Yes, we sold individual DVDs, and then our educational package is a package of DVDs in the toolkit.
Mhm.
We had merchandise at one point. That's not, maybe not physical, what you'd count as physical media.
Right.
But we were selling tangible merchandise at
And
one.
why don't you, so how many, do you know, outside of the educational packages, do you know how many, did you sell DVDs
Oh,
to public libraries or?
we did. Yeah,
Mhm.
we sold individual DVDs to libraries, but we mostly tried to sell our educational packages because the DVD, well, you could get a screening license with the DVD,
Mhm.
but the educational package is more robust. So we would use the individual DVDs, like we would bring them to festivals or, sell them for 20 bucks each. I still have some if anyone wants them, but we also, Passion River was selling those DVDs
Right.
for a
Yes.
while. And I don't think we sold very many. I mean, in the whole scheme of things, we really didn't do that well with DVD sales.
Right. Okay. All right. Fair enough. And then maybe give your warning about merch.
Well, it was a lot of fun. It kept me going. It was really fun in a time when things were a little bit dark and frustrating and confusing, and I was dealing with a lot of other issues related to the film and my family personally. The merchandise was a great way for me to stay interested in the project and to have fun with it and to do something creative that wasn't making the film and to capitalize on just kind of all of the quirky things in Sonia's life and all of the colorful things in her life and in this project. And so it was a really fun project to work on, but it didn't generate any revenue. I mean, we definitely lost money on merchandise. Um, it's complicated, probably for a lot of reasons, but we made some cool things that people had told us they wanted. But then we had the issue of having to ship all of the things. We didn't have money to hire somebody every time we did a screen. We should have sold, what would have been nice is if we could have sold merchandise at all of our festival screenings, all of our events, anytime we show up, we're selling things. But as you know, that's really hard to do when you're also saying hello to people, getting butts in seats, doing the Q&A, and then I'm like hawking all of this stuff. Like, you want a t-shirt for
Definitely
10
need,
bucks, you
you need
so
you definitely need a merch
we need
person.
a merch person like a band, but we don't have funding for a merch person.
Yeah.
And so that was confusing. So then we set up an online shop,
Mhm.
which is great, except that we didn't want to house all of this stuff in my living room. and ship it out myself, which would have been the cheaper way to go. So then we had a company who was warehousing it. They would ship it out. Then there's a fee for that.
Yeah.
So it was a great learning experience. It was awesome learning experience, but really hard to do it well when you're kind of doing all of the other jobs at the same time.
Yeah. And that kind of company is called the fulfillment company, which can get,
Fulfillment company, yes.
yeah. And there are some that do print on demand, which I'd recommend for smaller, you don't make as much
Yep,
money.
yep,
At least it's something that you can put out there, but
yep,
it's not the margin's small. And, until you get, if you have a large, large audience that likes to collect objects, like um, Hundreds of Beavers, like they had a very collector-oriented audience.
yeah.
And so I'm going to do a webinar on merch coming up, and it's
Oh,
really
that's fun.
for, yeah, it's really
That's great.
merch is best when you have an audience that likes to collect and hold on to things, and has disposable income. And that's when merch can really work well. So I'm announcing it now. I'm going to try to get Gary Huswit on board and also Kurt back from Hundreds of Beavers, and
Oh,
maybe
great.
try to find someone else who's been really successful at merch. But Gary's the king of film merch, you know,
He's amazing.
and
I'll
if you want to,
definitely be listening to that one. He's
yeah, if you want
awesome.
a school and film merch, well, I mean, hopefully we'll get Gary on. And I usually direct people to Gary's website, but so much of the stuff is sold out, is
It's
not on his site.
amazing.
He's produced so
Yeah,
many really cool products over the years, and he
yeah.
really knows how to do that so well. So, um, yeah, so someone asked, can you talk about the team and the cost to keep the film going over a long time? I know you mentioned Caitlin. Caitlin was your impact producer. She's now the head programmer, I believe, for the Middlebury Film Festival.
Yeah,
She,
Caitlin and Danae at Film Sprout.
yeah, films.
Um, I think we had them on for it ended up being 6 to 8 months, I believe, that
Mhm.
I was working with Film Sprout, and they were kickstarting our community screenings. They helped project manage the educational package, and so they were proactively selling the film for community screenings and education
Mhm.
for a while.
Mhm.
And they would
Okay,
send out the packages. And it was awesome. It was a great way to kick off that whole campaign.
right.
We had Jim at,
But are you comfortable saying how much you paid Caitlin?
oh,
And I know Caitlin doesn't do this anymore, and Film Sprout.
yeah, no, I don't really want to
Okay.
give that out just
Generally,
to
like
protect them, but
that
it,
kind of impact producing at the minimum is like around 3 grand a month, and
it,
like currently is 3 to 5 to 7 grand a month.
it was,
Right.
yeah, it depends how much you are also
Right.
working and how much outreach you want somebody to do, but it was monthly. And the idea was, I'm of course paying for their help, but they're selling packages.
Yeah.
And so that would come back.
Yeah.
And at the end, it ended up working in our favor.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say typically it's more like between like 5 and 10,000 a month
Yeah. Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
And so then you worked with Jim Brown, who
I
still
moved with
does
Jim
this.
Brown.
You can go
Yep,
to his website, Argo,
Argo
and
Pictures. So he was booking our theatrical, and he
yeah,
helped us submit for Academy qualification. So he
right.
also helped with our Academy qualifying run and all of our specs and assets that we needed to make that happen.
Did you run also an Academy campaign after your qualifying run?
No, no. We qualified, but we didn't really have a ton of, we did the minimum amount, I would say. We did extra press. Our campaign, if that's what we want to call it, really wasn't that robust because we didn't have a ton of funding. We did hire,
Believe me, I spend a lot of time talking filmmakers out of doing Academy
yeah,
Award campaigns, and especially if you don't have funding,
yeah,
it's we're actually working on a report now, where I think we're going back 15 years of films that shortlisted, and then got nominated and then won. and what festivals they premiered at, what distributors
Oh,
they're
great.
associated with, to kind of really show kind of like where, because find that people are doing so many awards campaigns that, you know, you really have to understand why you're doing an awards campaign. And an awards campaign can raise your profile in the doc
Right.
community, but if your awards campaign is to be on the short list and get nominated, and there's other awards besides the Academy Awards, there's other,
Of course. Yeah.
but still, um, the odds of getting shortlisted are so small, much
Right.
less nominated, so anyway, so I think it's
Yeah,
wise not to spend, and you really then have to think about what your goals are for the release and
exactly. Exactly.
how does
Yeah,
doing an awards campaign fit your goal?
exactly. Yeah. Professionally, we really wanted to qualify this film.
Yeah.
And we did that, and I'm happy that we did it. I'm happy with the way that it went. Sonia, of course, was the most disappointed because her dream was always to win an Academy Award. So she couldn't understand why we didn't get on the short list, but I certainly know that that's a
That's
long,
so cute.
a long
Yeah.
shot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we rolled out the red carpet for her in other ways, but
Right. Right. There is one question here, and I think I'll do just one more question. This is very specific about festivals require the film not having been premiered in order to be considered for programming. How does community screenings or school screenings relate to this requirement? So, I'll let you answer, and then
yeah,
I'll.
I would say it's a negotiation, and each event is unique, each town is unique, each festival is unique. I know that what you just said is the standard way that people are thinking about this, but the reality is um, there's a lot of leeway and negotiation that happens with each screening and event. So in general, yeah, the festival wants to have the premiere in their town, but you don't always know if you're going to get into that festival when you have another opportunity. So when things like that happened with us, and there was a lot of crossover, we would just get on the phone or have a meeting and talk about what the opportunity was and how it would work best for everybody. So in some cases, a festival would be more beneficial than a school, because especially if the festival is paying us to be there. And then let's say we got those two opportunities hit at the same time, I would probably talk to the school and the festival and say, well, why don't we give the school a special price for attending the
Mhm.
festival, get them to the film festival and pay us to be there, and everybody wins. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a puzzle to put together every time for each town during the festival screenings. And of course, if you don't get into a festival in a town, then it's free game. And we did that a lot also, where we would just book our own events and screenings, and we would make a lot more money than if we had shown the film at the festival.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No,
that's
that's
the other option.
Yeah, no, that's generally, it basically goes festivals, priority, for premiere status, festivals, and this is not just, for world premieres, but in each town. And then theatrical, if you're thinking of doing theatrical, and then after theatrical community screenings. And generally, a what festivals look at, especially for world premiere, is if you're thinking of doing community screenings before a festival screening, and there's different schools of thought on this, but generally, if a community screening is advertising publicly and it can be found on social media, then that community screening has the potential of being your world premiere. And then a festival won't take it or won't consider that there's a
And you can
world
also do, yeah, a
available.
private, you can make
That's
it
what I
do
was
a,
just,
yeah,
right. So if what is an option is doing private screenings or calling them work in progress
work in
screen.
progress. Yeah.
Yes, those are your two options, is to have them private so that there's nothing on social, so they're really private, or that they're work in progress screenings. Those are generally permitted. And then, we deal with this quite a lot because we have films. We just did a film called Sabbath Queen by Sandy Dubowski, and that we started the theatrical right in the the first third of his festival release. So we were constantly juggling and holding back cities for festival premieres before it could screen theatrical. And then there would be many community screening requests, and those were put off way, to be after the theatrical screening. And generally, theaters don't want anything being promoted in their city, so that the community screenings, if you're doing a theatrical in a city, have to be 2 months after the theatrical, because most
Yeah,
community screenings will want 2 months to promote. And if the theater sees advertising
right, right,
at the community screening happening before, they'll get very upset. So we
right.
basically say that you can't, basically the rule is you can do a community screening, you just can't advertise it or publicize it before the theatrical is over.
Exactly, exactly. And all the stuff we're talking about is so unique to each project and town and festival and screening. And it's like, I mean, every single time we're figuring out a different way to put the puzzle together. So
Right.
there's not an across the board. I know that there's an order of things that you're supposed to do and the traditional way that things happen, but I think that over the last couple of years, that traditional way has also broken down, and people are thinking out of the box and they're getting creative and looking at priorities. And yeah, I mean, I consult with filmmakers about this all the time as well. And so we're always trying to figure out what is the best scenario for this individual project. What's the goal? Is the
Mhm.
goal audience or money or both or neither? So there's a number of ways to skin the cat, I guess. It's
Right.
just very, very unique to every single project.
Cool. Well, how do people get in touch with you?
Well, you can email me directly. I'll put my email in the chat.
Okay.
And I am looking for new clients and filmmakers to consult with if anybody's interested in impact or distribution or audience engagement. I've been doing a lot more of that, so that's been nice over the summer.
Okay.
And then, of course, I'd love for you to watch
Yeah,
um,
big Sonia.
Big Sonia, and that link is, I think, in the chat already
We'll
for
also
the
put it
Vimeo
in,
on demand.
I'll just repeat that we're gonna post this next week. We'll put the link to Big Sonia in there as well. And all right, great. Well, thank you so much, Leah.
Thank
Really,
you, John. Thanks to everybody for joining.
yeah,
It always feels like
quite a great crowd during,
therapy,
yes,
group therapy.
yeah, exactly. And yeah, great. And thank you so much. And cool. I think we can,
Thank you. Thanks for all
yep.
your questions. Thanks for everybody's questions. And yeah, please, if something comes up afterwards, please feel free to reach out. I love talking about the process and the journey. It never gets old, and I learn from everyone here too as well. So thank you.